Powell, and I represent the respondent, Kelvin Hart, in this action. We are here today on the appeal of the Circuit Court, which found in favor of my client. The Fourth Amendment states that no warrant shall be issued, but upon probable cause, supported by the oath, describing the place to be searched and the person or thing to be seized. The issues presented today is whether a circumstance occurred for an exception to the warrant requirements, and whether Kelvin Hart's phone had an expectation of privacy. We ask the court to affirm the decision of the previous court. The facts of the case goes as follows. Dwayne Martin, cousin of Kelvin Hart, was left in charge by Kelvin's mother over Kelvin and their dog. When Martin entered the apartment, the dog brutally attacked him and left the open cut on Martin's hand. Later, the police arrived at the apartment building. The officers saw that Kelvin fit the description of the criminal that was hiding in the said building and had reasonable suspicion to begin questioning him. Martin, trying to prove himself as a part-time caretaker of the house, reached for his cell phone and left his aunt's where his aunt left him a message. However, Martin did not realize at the moment that he did not pick up his cell phone, but his cousin's Kelvin Hart's phone. Martin, before being able to explain, was arrested. 45 minutes later, Officer Codger forgot to put Kelvin's phone in evidence. A message then popped up. He then slid to unlock and read the messages. A search warrant was then asked for Kelvin's. Tonight, I will argue in favor of the respondents. First, I will prove that there was no exception to the warrant requirements. Second, that respondent's cell phone is more similar to a footlocker, therefore it has an expectation of privacy. As for my first argument, the government believes that it would be unreasonable for an officer to obtain a warrant for every search. There are 5 different exceptions to the warrant requirements. 4 are being disputed today. Consent, incident to lawful arrest, exigent circumstances, and plain view. As to the exception of consent, Dwayne consented to Officer Codger viewing his aunt's text messages. Therefore, this limited consent meant only his aunt's text messages should have been viewed. As to the second exception of incident to lawful arrest, first, the cell phone was in the possession of Officer Codger at the time of the arrest. Therefore, the evidence would not be destroyed. Also, in the case of Chadwick and Diaz, the court found that if an officer has adequate amount of time after the seizure to obtain a warrant, it would not be reasonable to sustain a warrantless search. Here, Officer Codger had 45 minutes to obtain a warrant. Therefore, sustaining a warrantless search was not reasonable. As to the third exception of exigent circumstances, the court found an officer may search a person or place as long as there is immediate threat. Here, there was no immediate threat. As to the fourth exception of plain view, first, the officer must have the right to be where they were. In our case, because Officer Codger did not have the right to still have Kelvin's phone in his possession, he did not have the right to be with him. Second, it must be immediately apparent that what the officer has seen is criminal activity. Kelvin has shown no sign of criminality. How can the officer connect him to JB, a notorious criminal, to gang? As to my second argument, the court is acknowledging how the Fourth Amendment how technology has shaped the Fourth Amendment. To determine whether a cell phone is more similar to a footlocker or a cigarette box, we must understand what exactly a cell phone is and how it is used. In the case of New York versus Belton, the court found that a container is any object capable of holding another object. However, a cell phone does not simply hold physical objects, it holds large digital information. Thus, in the case of DX, the court found that cell phones are not containers within the meaning of Belton. They are private properties, which was used to determine the rules in Robinson, Edwards, and Chadwick. Addressing the function of the smartphone. Most smartphones in Kelvin's phone had a lock screen, like a footlocker, which keeps others out of his personal information. The fact stands that there was a lock screen on the phone, and to get to the message tray on the phone, Officer Codger would have to go through several steps to invade Kelvin's privacy. In conclusion, you should vote in favor of my client. I have proven that there was no circumstances that occurred for an exception to the warrant requirements, and that Kelvin's phone had an expectation of privacy. Your Honor, relying on the decision which was made in the lower court. Thank you, Your Honor.